6. We're 6, so we're good. Okay, great. Okay. All right. Danielle, you give me the thumbs up whenever you need. Oh, thumbs up. Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's advisory design panel. First agenda item is to ensure everyone remembers we are on the Squamish Nation traditional territory. And thank you for having us here. And item 2 is adoption of our agenda. So is there a recommendation that we move the February 19th advisory design panel agenda, the one in which I was nominated chair, well, absent? Okay, interesting. Sarah, yes. That's comeuppance from John. Thank you. So Sarah and a second by John. Great. Wonderful. And perfect. We'll move to business, DP 656 for lot 15 Aspen Road.
We just need the minutes adopted.
Oh, I think that we just did that. Oh, that's the agenda. Perfect. Can we also have the minutes adopted? John's first, Michael's second. Wonderful.
Sorry, I
Thank
have
you for
some
that.
amendments.
You have the amendments. Perfect. Sarah, what are your amendments?
Just on page 3, under the accessible comments, both adaptable and accessible units should be spread throughout the unit size of units. And then additionally, the following comment, picnic table should include extended top with hard surfacing beneath. And then finally, the naming convention for adaptive mountain bikes. It's not adapted, it's adaptive. That can just be changed. And then similarly, just below within the second round of recommendations, it's the same verbatim. And then in page 5, again, the accessibility comments, it should be ensure curb cuts and not just rollover curbs on driveways. And then again, the following line is cognitive disabilities, not cognizant. And finally, the final point being ensure accessible pedestrian access. That's all my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. We got them. Great. With that, do I have to do another approval? Approval of the amended minutes as amended? Yeah. John first, Michael second. Great. Okay.
Before we start, I just wanted to say hi to everyone. It's my first meeting. Happy to be joining all of you. Shora Pavarish, AIBC member from Noble Architecture. Thank you.
Hi, Shora.
Hi.
We're terrible at introducing new members, so thank you for doing that.
Of course. No
and maybe if we
worries.
have a second after, we can do a little chat afterwards because we always fly off. We'll see what the time allows. Which reminds me, I have been asked for today that we keep on target. We've got 2 very large packages in front of us to deliberate on, and so just if you don't have a comment or something to say, that's okay. And if you do, just try to make it targeted and concise. Okay, so with that, lot 15 Aspen Road, Philip Gibbins as the planner. I'll let you introduce the project.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to keep it brief because I know the applicant team here is going to do a good job of introducing it. But yeah, we've got a 6-story mixed-use rental project in the North Yards neighbourhood. So including some live workspaces, we've got 163 units and 10 live workspaces, a childcare space. We're looking at development permit area 3 universal guidelines here, and in the back of the report I've highlighted particular areas for feedback. This is also commercial and rental, so this qualifies as a priority project. So we're in the recommendations, we're looking at A and B. So this one will only come to ADP one time. The other sort of major difference with this one is the open space is essentially being provided off-site and we've got a pocket park concept which has been included as part of the package, which is going to exist on district land and become a neighbourhood park. I think I'll leave it at that for now. And yeah, we've got the applicant team. You're going to come on up.
Where do I move them? Click.
Maybe the view and
If you go to view and then full screen.
Yeah.
there we go.
And then
Now do you click on?
you should just be able to tab across them.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right. Okay. So my name is Steve Watt. I'm an architect with Integra Architecture, joined today by Jessica Thiessen from Van der Zam, an Associates Landscape Architects, and Guadalupe Font from Density Development Corporation, the owner. I'll give a quick overview of the design for this mixed-use purpose-built rental development. In context, the site's located in the North Yards neighborhood between Highway 99 and the future Pioneer Way connector between Aspen Road and Government Road. And there's a number of DP area guidelines that are applicable. To set up our character, we've looked at some contemporary recent builds in Squamish. They illustrate some common themes that we're going to try and adopt, including expressed corners and balconies, framed elements, and color or wood-toned accents. So we're proposing a 6-story, pretty linear building, essentially 2 buildings with a connection to form a strong street presence along the new Pioneer Way. 163 purpose-built rental units are proposed, including 3,500 square feet of indoor amenities, a daycare, and live-work units. Parking is provided at a 1-to-1 ratio in a mix of surface parking and underbuilding parking. This building proposal is contemporary in design, employing high-quality durable materials to satisfy the wildfire hazard guidelines, and will be subject to meeting Energy Step Code Level 3, Zero Carbon Level 4, and as such also employ several other sustainability objectives, including EV charging, low flow fixtures, energy efficient appliances, and heat pumps. Going to the site plan, the strategy is to create street presence with a linear building along the west edge, flanking Pioneer Way. Parking is concealed from this frontage by locating it to the east and under the building, accessed from Aspen Road. A commercial component is required in this project, which is being delivered in the form of 10 live-work units, which are the sort of tan-colored number 8 there. That's in the north half of the building. There's also the 4,200 square foot daycare space, the blue number 6 at the north end. The south half of the building contains the main lobby and fire department access point facing Aspen Road, some residential units, service rooms, and indoor amenities, which are to include a social room, work area, and gym, though nothing's programmed at this stage of the project. There is a purposeful break in the middle of the building to break the length and break the massing. This area includes vertical circulation and an arrival plaza off the parking area to orientate the commercial and residential visitor. A pocket park is proposed for the orphan slice of land between Pioneer Way and the property line on the west, number 10. Floating. There we go. This lighting indicates in blue all the level 1 barrier-free access proposed to and within the building. We have 2 pedestrian ramps, one at the main lobby on the south side of the building and one adjacent to the central plaza. Accessible parking stalls are adjacent to the plaza ramp. Some additional accessible stalls are located in the parkade. For this project, we have to provide by BC code 20% adaptable units, which we will be doing. We have not selected which units will be applied those provisions at this point. Quickly on the parking plan, we've tried to minimize this for cost as much as possible. It fits snugly under the building along the west edge of the property. We have garbage storage in the elbow on the north side, which has direct access out to the drive aisle for ease of collection. And all our bike storage is located in this underground or underbuilding parkade. Level 1 we've sort of discussed already through the site plan. Level 2 to 6 for construction and structural efficiency, the plan is stacked through all levels. And you can see more clearly on this one, the minimal connection, which is a double elevator and an exit stair and a corridor. To the building elevations, to articulate the massing, we've expressed the corners with roof pop-ups and frames. We've framed the balconies in groups and used color to add to the perception of recession, using the dark to appear to recede, the white more of a foreground color. The points of entry and circulation are marked commonly with the wood-toned wall accents against the white cladding. The end elevations, north and south, are much simpler. The south elevation includes the main lobby and includes some stone cladding at the base and signage, as well as the wood tone material in the white cladding above. The east elevation facing the surface parking is treated similarly to the Pioneer Way frontage, but includes commercial signage opportunities along the face of the live work units on the right-hand half, with the daycare at the extreme right on the first floor. This image shows more of the richness of the materials proposed, which include red corrugated metal, fiber cement lap siding and panels, wood-toned lap siding and wood-toned soffits, and aluminum picket railings throughout. The sections are fairly straightforward. We are, of course, raising the first floor to comply with the flood control level. The section on the right, lower right, shows the reduction in massing at the plaza break midway in the building and the potential for a through connection to the pocket park. There's some shadow studies, fairly self-explanatory. And then some renderings, the frontage on Pioneer Way from the Aspen end, and then from the opposite end with the daycare in the foreground bottom left. And then a view from the surface parking looking towards the central plaza with there'll be some commercial signage there and signage along the live work units heading towards the right. Close up of the south elevation, just to show the pedestrian access. There's a sign at the top there and the cultured stone material at the base. And overall aerial view, and then I'll pass to Jessica here to review the landscape design.
Thank you, thank you. I can probably just sneak this thing to my bed. Will work. Okay, so we've looked at the site plan already a few times, but I'll just cover a few different landscape features throughout. We have, if we start on the Aspen Road side there, we have the entrance, the main lobby of the building. We have an accessible ramp that goes up to that building, as well as a staircase that meets the, gets us up to that flood construction level. Throughout the parking lot, we have a variety of trees to provide some shade and greenery. We have a dry rock bed that's in the center of the parking lot that may end up providing some stormwater management, but otherwise is a sustainable and drought-resistant feature of the landscape. Through the middle, between the two buildings, we have a courtyard that will lead you from the parking lot through to either building, but then also through to the pocket park that is on the west side of the building. We have on the north end, the outdoor area for the daycare. So that's taking up the majority of the outdoor amenity space on site. That is the size that is required for the size of the daycare that we're proposing. And then we have a few different access points to the west off of the site and into the pocket park for lots of pedestrian connections through the site. Yeah, so continuing on with pedestrian connections, the red would be connections that are not accessible, and the purple arrows show the accessible connections that we have through the site. So you can see at different points in the enlargements how we could get around the site and what the opportunities there are. On the north end of the site, we've just included some precedent imagery. The outdoor daycare area is unprogrammed at this time. We don't have a provider yet, but that will be in the future. We have a small amenity space that helps to connect the exitway from the building out to the street. And then we have the live work units have some outdoor patios on the west side of the building that also have access to a walkway that connects to the central courtyard and out to either the pocket park or the parking lot. And on the south end, again, we have lots of landscape buffering along the edges of the parking lot, around the PMT, and lots of sort of naturalized features within the parking lot. And again, on the west side of the building, we have private patios that have a little bit of buffering from the park, so they're not being looked into from the park. In terms of plant material that we're looking at for this project, we have a variety of native and adaptive plant material. We've focused on plant material that is bird and bee friendly, but also we are trying to strike the balance between the fire smart regulations and not attracting wildlife. So this is where we've landed. We have a variety of bloom periods and features within the plants. Oh, that was it. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll start with a round of questions, and I think I'll go online first. Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Sure. My documents are loading kind of weirdly slowly on my computer, but I've got a series of questions, so hopefully you can make sense. I just wanted to find out, I guess, that the sidewalk that runs along Aspen Road will continue when Pioneer Way is completed. Is that the idea? Just thinking about pedestrian access in this space.
Sarah, do you mean connect the Aspen Road sidewalk connect to the sidewalk on Pioneer Way?
Yes.
So yeah, the frontage details are still yet to be determined, but I think you could assume that that frontage will connect along through there.
Okay. And then it's difficult for me. I'm trying to understand the drop-off area for the daycare. If you can't go into the underground parking, then is there a turnaround point at the end of the, like by where the garbage would be collected? On the, I guess,
So
north,
I
western
think
corner?
at this stage, we're anticipating we will allocate some of these stalls. Perhaps, I don't know if you can see where my hand cursor is circling.
Yeah.
Yeah, either these or these over here that can connect directly to a stair or
Okay.
the ramp. We haven't fully determined which stalls to do that with yet.
Right. Okay. Can you tell me what the slope of the ramp is at the sort of central location off the parking lot? So number 9
I think it is maximized to 8.3%.
at both ramps.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And then I guess it doesn't matter then, but because the accessible parking is in this main parking area, and it doesn't seem that you can get through at the top of the ramp to go through to the sidewalk that runs in front of the indoor amenity space. How is somebody supposed to park, then wheel through the parking lot to go to the ramp off Aspen Road if they can't get through at the top of the ramp that's adjacent to the parking?
So the ramp leading to this plaza space
Yep.
provides access into the ground floor of the building on the left.
Okay.
And there's elevators in here that allow access to the upper levels, obviously, and there'll be a connection through the building to the front. So yeah, you can accessibly access the building from that ramp in the middle of the building.
Okay. In the internal or the covered accessible parking, there's a number of accessible parking spaces that are just set adjacent to an access aisle leading to door of the bike parking. But the one that's sort of more northeast, you have to travel behind 12 vehicles to get to the elevator. Is that your final destination? Have you thought about the path of travel for somebody going from that location to the elevator?
I will admit they would be better served closer to the elevators, for sure.
Okay. And then similarly, if somebody with a mobility disability wants to take their garbage to the garbage room, are you proposing that they go in the front of the building or in the underground parking? And what does
I
that?
would imagine they would use the underground parking.
Okay.
You know, there is still some distance to travel there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would think that sight lines of coming in and out of the end of the parkade might be problematic. Something you might want to revisit. And then it seemed that you were going to put a number of adaptable units in the live work spaces. And it looks like they're a wheel-in shower. but they've got a door on them. Is that correct? Is that sort of what you've?
The live work units will be provided with an accessible or a universal washroom. These 10 units won't be the sum of all the adaptable units in the project. We have to provide 33 in total. So there will be a mix of units provided as adaptable on the upper levels.
Okay, and then can you just tell me, are all of the main entrances and the entrance to the daycare and the garbage, are those going to have automatic door openers?
Main entrance to the building for sure. By code, I'm not sure if the daycare would require it, but we can always provide.
Okay,
The
that's
daycare
all my,
provider might want to provide it anyway.
yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'll go to Kim next. Kim, I think you're on mute still. Sorry. Try again there.
Sorry. Okay.
Hear you now. Thanks.
Just on the daycare that Sarah was referring to enter the daycare, do you walk in front of all the live work units? Is that how you get in there?
That's correct.
So those spaces in front of the live work units are really a sidewalk and not private outdoor spaces.
Correct. Yeah, we kind of split those long live work units in half. Basically, they have a private patio space on the west side, and on the east side facing the parking, it's more of a covered commercial, what would you call it? Muse.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. I guess the other question I had was on I get the access to the pocket park, and maybe this was discussed. I guess if you've got a disability, it's down the ramp on at 1. Is that correct? You can't go through your
Correct.
center gallery down and have access to the park. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, because really your outdoor space is fundamentally a parking lot, is it possible to reduce the amount of parking and increase landscape or pathways or something that makes it less than just a parking lot? And maybe that's a question for the district too. I'm not sure. No one wants to answer.
Phil Gibbins, planner on the project. So we've almost just completed a rezoning project for this. This does, from bylaw requirements, have a significant reduction in parking already. So
I
you're looking
see.
at 1 space per unit.
Uh-huh. Okay. And for economy's sake, and I guess floodplain, you're not going down a second level in parking. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
That's all my questions right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Kim. Shora?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, I think you might have mentioned it in the package, what is going to be the future use of the property to the east of us? So right beside the parking lot, what is the future use for that? Do we know what it's zoned for?
Philip again, planner. We don't really know. It's Crown land. It's currently undeveloped. I believe that, some ministries use it for some sort of storage currently.
Okay, thank you. I was only asking because we have taken a direction. We're facing Pioneer Way, and if we don't know what's going to the back to the property on the east side, that would affect that. And then my other question is about the size of the daycare. What is the capacity? Do we know how many kids, or what did that size come from? Was it a requirement from the district or the design team?
So the direction to us through the developer was based on daycare providers providing input. I can't speak to the makeup of the classrooms, etc. this time, but yeah, it was based on real sizing.
Okay, thank you. And the amenity spaces, was that from the design team, or it was something that was in the zoning?
So the amenity spaces, I believe that was in part negotiation with the district in terms of the overall commercial component as well. But we've also not programmed the indoor amenities yet. There will be most likely a social room, a gym, and a workspace.
Thank you. That is for my questions.
Great, thank you very much. And then inside the room, John Chapman.
Thanks, Carlos. Just a couple of quick questions. So with the entrance lobby at the south end, is the expectation that building residents in both buildings will enter through that, or will folks in the north building go to the central plaza to get into their building?
Honestly, I think the central plaza and the parkades underneath, so those central two elevators are going to see most use. The lobby on the south is primarily because we need an entrance 15 meters from the curb to satisfy the building code.
Okay.
And
so
that would be the primary fire department.
it's that fire access. Okay. So the central plaza is maybe ultimately more of what feels like the building entrance?
Yes.
Okay. And then in terms of the parking, you talked about that you'll seek a 1-to-1 parking ratio, one stall per unit. Is there any guest parking stalls that are in addition to that? Any
I don't have the exact number. Maybe it is on the drawing.
Okay.
17.
17 stalls.
Right.
Oh, thanks. And then I think that, there've been some questions about the circulation and potential challenges with dropping off for the daycare, which I think are, really good questions. You suggested that some of those parking stalls in front of the live work units could be allocated to help with the daycare drop off, I believe. Is that right? So
That's correct.
Would that, if those stalls were allocated for daycare drop off 5 mornings a week, does that mean that they come out of that either the number of guest stalls, or that would drop the ratio below 1 stall per unit?
I believe the intent would be to share it with the commercial component. So it's a time sensitive operation. So I think it can be.
So sort of the kids get dropped off for daycare, and then the businesses open, and then the businesses close, and then the kids get picked up, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That is it for me.
Thank you. Michael?
Thanks for the presentation. I had a question on the tree schedule. There's a list of trees proposed on the plan, and then it's slightly different than the images on the planting palette. Is the Acer platanoides, is that still proposed as a significant tree component in the plan?
The trees that are on the drawings would supersede what's in this image slide.
Okay. And then so the pocket park is a concept only, so we're not commenting on the design of the pocket park at this point, or?
We'd welcome comments on the concept as it currently is, but it is still finer details to be worked out with our parks planning team.
Okay. Are you able to give a brief overview of sort of the elements of the pocket park? Is that something that's been?
Yeah, I can give you a brief overview. I wasn't involved in all of the discussions. We did sort of a concept based on what the district expressed some interest in. So the main component in the pocket park is that there is a dog park here. So it would be a fenced in area. We also have a little bit of open space and some social gathering space with sort of seating and hardscape. And then primarily the pocket park is open space and naturalized planting.
And then you might have said this, I might have just missed it. In the parking lot, the central area with the river rock bed, is that to act as a rain garden? Is that collecting stormwater?
At this point, it's got potential for that. We haven't gotten into the detailed stormwater management, but we felt that that was a good feature regardless of whether or not we could have it be a functional stormwater management area. It would still be a nice feature for the design, and it becomes drought tolerant and fire resistant and whatnot as well.
Okay. And then as someone riding a bike, where would it make sense for them to get into the building and access the bike storage? What route is that?
Yeah, so if you are visiting the building, there are bike racks rather at number 8 in that central area, central entrance area. And if you are residing in the building, then you're probably using the parkade entrance to access the bike parking or bike lockers that are within the parkade.
That's all the questions I had.
Thank you. And Luke?
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of the questions I had have been answered. Could you give me some more info on like the privacy screen strategy between the units at the level 1 and what that is?
They would typically be probably a frosted glass screen and an aluminum frame.
Is that typical across the project, or is it different between the
That would
live
be
work
typical.
units?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then there is, what's like the area of the covered outdoor area for the daycare? Is there anything proposed for that, or is that sort of still in flux given that it's not being designated yet?
It's still somewhat in flux. We did allude to something in one of these renderings here. This elevation. So this part here is covered. I know there is a proportion that has to be covered for daycare.
Yeah.
We would just need to flesh that out when we get more detail.
Yeah. Would the intent be that when you know how many kids there are and you have that required overhang, would the intent be to create an architectural solution, or would it be more of a proprietary?
I think we'd lead with the architectural solution. I think it ties us into the building really quite well there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question for staff. I didn't manage to see it in the stats. Is the garbage room meeting the minimum requirements? The size?
I believe they had some stats on the drawing package, not in the.
Oh, I looked at the applicant package.
Yeah, they were both attached. Anyway, there are some numbers in there. I guess one thing to note is it doesn't have a separated commercial and residential. That's probably the only item that doesn't strictly align.
Okay, thanks. And is there a requirement for one firewall in this building? See in the plans.
That is correct. Yeah.
And the strategy for sort of masking that was to add additional ones, what appears like additional ones on the elevation?
On the elevations, yeah, we've used that as a sort of recurring motif just to break up the facade at the top 2 levels. Yeah.
Okay. And then my last one is do you have any information on the strategy for the signage and lighting of these commercial workspaces? I saw like a note for signage that looked like it was on mounting to the fascia, but there's no detail.
It is a little early in the design development for that. So we've have placeholders. So we're thinking hanging signs for the live work units, maybe a fascia mounted sign for the daycare at the end of the building. And a sort of monument sign at the base of the stairs for the central plaza, and a main entrance sign on the south elevation at the lobby.
Okay. And like what was the thought behind the general commercial strategy for those entry doors? Is it like a storefront system, mostly glazed, or 'cause it appears to be sort of punched openings on the elevation?
Yeah, I think it was more punched openings for this stage. We may lean towards a storefront if we get more direction from the owner.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's all my questions.
Great. Yeah, so I see in the report from staff, you know, kind of some questions around Squamish vernacular, and I think your cover page kind of covered that off well. With regards to the flat roofs, have you put any thought towards kind of future screening of mechanical on the roof and how you would deal with that given the form?
To be honest, not at this time. We do understand with heat pumps, we're probably going to have quite a lot of machinery on the roof. So screening, there's always a debate in our office whether it actually is worth it, given you're 6 stories up. You know, we've done many types. We've done wood screens, we've done aluminum screens, acoustic screens. It may come down to whatever the district prefers to see versus or in conjunction with cost, because obviously those elements can cost a lot of money, penetrating the roof membrane, etc. So
sure. Okay, and then I noticed the 6th floor deck space don't really have much in the way of cover. Did you explore kind of extending that roof line out to provide the same amount of cover as you have for the lower stories?
yes, it can be done. It also means all the structure needs to go up another story, which makes the massing look different. I think it feels lighter with the roofs pulled back, and primarily we're giving cover to the doors. I know people like the idea of round year all weather living outside, but whether it's actually realistic, it's everyone's argument.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, great. Well, that concludes all the questions, unless there's anyone else that's got one that's come up since then. Seeing none, we'll move on to comments in the same order, please. Sarah.
Okay, so so just to revise some of the covered accessible parking locations so that there's not such a distance to travel behind parked vehicles, and also simultaneously considering how somebody is going to access the garbage room when they're traveling from the elevators in that underground or that covered parking area, and the entrance into the excuse me, into that parking, so that there's some clear sight lines and maybe some convex mirrors or such. Ensure that the garbage room has automatic doors on it. If possible, if you could reduce the slope of the ramp at the central location, that adjacent to the accessible parking stalls, that would be great, because you're at the steepest possible slope that's allowed, and in the weather damp climate, it's actually going down. That sometimes can be a bit tricky. Make sure that you've got tactile warning strips at the top of both sets of stairs, just because the access to the ramps and the stairs are relatively close together. I'd encourage you in the adaptable units when they're going to have a wheel-in shower, to ensure that the shower controls are going to be located centrally in the side wall so that they're reachable from a seated position. And though I know that it's done for cost, I would avoid cultured stone if possible. That's all my comments. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. And next up, I had Kim.
My main comments are on the entrance and particularly the entrance at the center of the building at what you call the plaza, I think, because that's the one that's obviously going to be used. And architecturally, it doesn't read that strongly. I think if you could do something stronger to really punch that out, that would improve the readability of the building. I question the entrance to the daycare because you're going by all these, I guess they're live work. Are they stores? I'm not quite clear on what they are. They're very small. So as a live work space, they're quite confined. But you know, taking your kids past all of those, I think is not ideal. If you could get an entrance that is more for the daycare, at the daycare and with a drop off there, that would, I think, perform much better. So, and then if there's any way to get a little more sense of pathways in your parking lot, so it just doesn't feel like a big parking lot, I think that that would be worthwhile. Maybe reducing the width of your island in the center so you can actually have a pathway, something like that. So it just is feels a little bit more like pathways that take you to that entrance, I think would be good. Yeah, those are my main comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Shora? Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
Thank you. My comment is about the parking lot as well. I think it would be worthwhile considering and looking into maybe creating more of the usable outdoor space in that area by maybe narrowing the driving aisles a bit. I'm not sure if it is possible or not, but it is clearly a parking lot, and I see a lot of attention is going to the parklet in the front, and it would be really nice to see some of that happening in the back as well. But apart from that, I think I'm good.
Great, thank you. John?
Thank you. A couple of comments. So first comment is that I'm really struggling to find anything in the design that reflects and celebrates what's unique and special about Squamish. That appears to be a really important part of the development permit area guidelines. So I really think the building design should more explicitly address that one. I like the pocket park. It's a great feature. It's a nice location with that proximity to the, be really able to be well used by residents on future buildings on the other side of Pioneer Way as well. So I like that. It does seem to me that it really should be the accessibility from the central plaza should be addressed. You should be able to get without having to use stairs into the pocket park from the central plaza. So I recognize there's a great change, but I think there should be some more attention paid to that. The building seems to be really long. You've effectively made it into two buildings, so you've gone to some effort to split it into two buildings, but it still really seems to read as one building. So I just wonder if there's any thought given to changing the orientation of one building with respect to the other, or using the site a little bit differently so that you really could break apart that really long massing. Similarly, the roof line, there's essentially no variation on the roof line. It's just one long flat roof line. So just wonder if maybe there's some opportunity to look at that. I'm thinking again, you know, that you're going to see it from the highway, obviously from the, you know, the neighborhood to the south and the east of this location as well. I think, you know, it's been brought up by others, but that daycare pickup and drop off could be a bit challenging. Like you have these two prime pulses of traffic at a daycare, and so cars have to come all the way into the far end of the parkade, and you know, navigating against other traffic and pedestrians coming and going. So that does seem a bit challenging. I mean, it's a big move at this stage of the project, but like, why not flip the daycare and the amenity space? And then you could really have a much more convenient pickup and drop off location for daycare at the south end of the building. I would echo Kim's suggestion to develop that central entrance. I think there could be that could help with the distinction between the two buildings. And I would echo Sarah's desire to please avoid cultured stone. And I would say, you know, I think the 1-to-1 parking ratio for units is reasonable for a building in this location. But the visitor and commercial stalls for the function of the building are, I think, quite important. So would not want to see that decreased at this point.
Okay, thanks. Michael?
All right. My comments, I think there's a lot of potential with that pocket park. I think a key piece of making it function well is visibility from the street. It's hard to tell in the concept right now kind of how buffered by vegetation the park is around the perimeter, but I think having sight lines into the park frequently and good sight lines is going to be important. The dog park, it feels a little small. I think it's a good amenity to have in the park, but it does have quite a big pinch point in it, which can create some challenges with dogs and confrontation. I think also the material of that dog run needs to be considered in terms of whether it's a synthetic turf and if it's going to be irrigated to flush out the dog pee, or if it's going to be a granular material, if it's going to be dusty. So some thought to that, and also the amenities required for a dog run. For the plant material, I think that the Norway maple, there's 31 of those. That's a significant number of trees when we look at the whole tree palette, and they're not a native species. And while the particular variety is not necessarily aggressive, the species is, and it would be nice to find some more opportunity to use either more native or more flowering species that provide a bit more interest or habitat benefit than Norway maple. I do really like the idea of that central, potentially a rain garden in the parking lot, and I hope that it can function that way if it stays. Although I do agree with the comments about trying to find more room in the parking area for pedestrian movement through it. I think with the daycare drop off, if the daycare is going to stay where it is, I think there needs to be some space for people to drop off with bikes, and particularly cargo bikes or bikes with back bike seats. And so I don't really see a place for someone to do that and conveniently leave their bike while they take their child in. So I think some space needs to be provided for that. In terms of the furnishings, the benches should have armrests as an option to include for accessibility. And then the wave bike style bike rack that's provided is a fairly challenging bike rack to lock bikes to, particularly if you do have a cargo or e-bike. So just looking at a different style, like an inverted U, to accommodate more bike types. And then, yeah, I think I will leave my comments there. Thanks.
Thank you. Luke?
Thanks. Thank you both for your presentation and answering all those questions. Overall, I think the massing of the building, has been broken down actually relatively well by the use of materials and color that's been expressed across the whole line. But however, the overall general massing in is, I think, sorry, I'm just trying to articulate this well and clearly. I think the amount of materials and boxy forms that have been added have done well to break down the mass. However, it conversely lends itself to a little bit of busyness across the project. I actually kind of echo John's comment. The use of breaking up the mass, I commend you on that. That's a really good addition to the center of it. However, the overall form, when you view it from afar, it does appear to be still one piece, and potentially that could be done by reconsidering how the alignment of the building goes. I appreciate that is a significant deviation in where you're at right now, or it could be as minimal as considering different materials and colors across the different volumes to try and express them as different buildings. The site placement with the daycare as well, I know that's been mentioned as with the drop-off, but I do think that having them shared with the live work is a really great idea, and that loading, being that there are a differing schedule, that is totally appropriate. However, I also echo the comment regarding the daycare being at the back of the site. You're having to bring everyone onto site, so that one point of day where people do have pickup and drop off, it will get very busy there. And I'm trying to look for a different place to suggest, but the most applicable one seems to be right by those live work units, and it's right by the parkade entry. So I can see that being a very, very busy, confusing space to be. And I think there needs to be some attention paid there to see if there's another solution. And I don't want to suggest that it should be completely flipped, but maybe there's another solution that's less intrusive to the current design. The use of the stone, I won't comment on using the cultured stone, but that having a different material there, I think does well to actually articulate the build and differentiate the residential from the live work. A little bit more could probably be done with these boxy forms. I know that they continue all the way to the ground. Potentially there could be some consideration there to stop them at that level 2 point to express those live work units as more as commercial, because right now they sort of disappear into the building, and the same thing happens for the entry. Creating more of a sense of arrival by using maybe more glazing or a difference of material in that void space and at those commercial spaces could be a solution that might allow those to actually be easy for site navigation and wayfinding. The firewalls, I appreciate that it's very difficult to mask a firewall, but unfortunately the way it sort of reads right now is it looks like it's got 4 firewalls, and potentially a review of those roof lines with some a variation of massing might help to make them disappear a bit more by allowing them to become part of your boxy forms or something. I would consider how the signage that's so closely located between the live work units and the residential units above, just consider that they shouldn't infringe on the residential there. And then also lighting, if they're backlit, they need to be shielded from those residential units, otherwise they will have a bit of a discomfort in the evenings. I was going to speak to the overall sense of arrival, but I kind of already alluded to that with the void and the materials. And then I was also echo Sarah's comment. In the parkade, it would be worthwhile reconsidering the location of those accessible spaces. I totally appreciate they're using the drive aisle to access the bike, but you also have given a little bit more space between the columns, and that is a requirement in Vancouver, but I don't believe it's a requirement in Squamish, so you might be able to squeeze out some more space there so you're not losing parking. But also allowing those accessible spaces to be close proximity to the elevator. And then the last one would be give a consideration to the guardrails and the privacy screens, given that there's so much articulation currently going on with the different material changes, the choice for picket guardrails, and then also for aluminum framed privacy screens. I do feel like overall this project is getting quite busy and could benefit from a little bit of calming down, maybe even less articulation in some way in that respect. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Okay. And last for me, so thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, I guess I'll take my opportunity as the UDI chair to express that I can see this can be a challenging site. It's an interesting shape. You've got FCL challenges. None of those things are easy to navigate. I have particular interest about the property to the south, at the other side of the Aspen road bulb, and I wonder who owns that and what will come of it. But hopefully, we'll see that as an adjacent piece that can kind of enhance this neighborhood, especially if we one day get funding for the affordable housing adjacent to this. So yeah, I guess my points that kind of derive from my comments and my colleagues' comments here. I think mechanical is an interesting question. We see a lot of buildings that are currently being built on the highway, and I think where you can tell who's thought about screening and you can tell who's not thought about screening when it comes to the mechanical units. And I think if you can't see them, it's better. I know that's not always possible, but it's nice to have for sure, especially because we have so much traffic going up and down that road. Yeah, I can definitely see the trade-off for pedestrianization of that parking area and the fact that you have to meet your parking requirements, and there's a challenge there, and of course, like you have an opportunity for a potential stormwater landscape feature of rock, which is really nice, but because you're at an SCL and you're now so far above the water table, it will never be wet, and so those are challenges that have to be dealt with. I don't know if it's appropriate, but we have looked at advisory lanes within the district of Squamish previously as a typology for roads, and so I don't know if that's possible to create some more priority to the pedestrian within that parking lot. Yeah, and I'll say it's interesting. Like if you look at the material palette and using corrugated metal as its accent feature, I think actually really aligns well within the context of this transition zone of the site from our light industrial park into a residential neighborhood. I think you could probably play off that and look at the cultured stone and maybe bring in some more metal materials and perhaps simplify that massing as Luke pointed out, and where possible, look to enhance it with a bit of color. I think, again, you have a very compelling presentation there when it comes to Squamish vernacular. I think we've got a couple competing Squamish vernaculars at the moment, and this is certainly now one of them. I think some comments that we've heard within the community are this desire for more color and more visual interest, and so I think there's an opportunity there with this building, and can certainly understand it is quite long, but it has been broken up, and maybe I think the big opportunities are in the color, and then again in the entry feature. So with that, I think I'll summarize the comments I heard from the panel briefly. So recommend to look at revisions of the accessible parking locations and that access to the garbage room. Automatic doors, which I know is more of a BP item, but I think automatic doors are something to look at across the board. If possible, explore the slope of the ramp along that central area for accessibility, and location shower controls are going to be important. The cultured stone was brought up a number of times, so maybe a look at a different material there. Some attention to the daycare pickup and drop off. The opportunities to really punch up the plaza and the way the plaza entrance and how it reads. Exploring options and access around the daycare, and in an extreme, the daycare placement, but if not in lieu of that, just how that access is working especially with the interaction between parking. Pedestrianization of the parking lot and just trying to make that a safer space for people not in cars. Consideration of just general building facade articulation and roof line, including materials and colors, and as well as the kind of multiple firewall, which I think only architects would see, but we'll leave it at that. And I think some great comments on the pocket park and that some considerations around the dog park and how to optimize within that area. Highlighting Norway maple and maybe an opportunity to look at a diversification of the species there. Consideration of bike parking generally within the site and the U-lock, because I agree. I thought this district standard was the U-lock now. Maybe that's only on municipal sites, but the inverted U seems to work quite well. And then signage details, which I know is a DP item, but be good to have that in place. Am I missing anything, gang? No, thumbs up. Okay, and so because this is a rental project and a priority project, we have two options. We have A, that the advisory design panel support the project as presented and does not need to see the project returned for further review, or B, that the advisory design panel supports the project as presented and would like the applicant to work with staff to resolve the following recommendations, which would be the ones I listed. Motion for B,
Second.
seconded. So Luke and then John, all in favor? All right. Anyone opposed? No one else. So there you have it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Should we take 5 minutes?
Yeah, Carlos, I'm just going to take this moment to recuse myself from the next one.
Why, Luke? Why, Luke?
Because I believe I am married to the planner.
Excellent. All right. Well, reconvene at 3:11. Perfect.
was actually talking to Luke about you guys around crabbing in your boat.
Okay. And we're back. Welcome everyone to part 2. Thanks for joining us. I'll just remind it's a very dense package. Thank you for providing all that information, but we are going to try and keep it a bit tight. So brevity. Phase 6, Waterfront Landing, Kerry Hamilton as planner. I'll let you introduce the project.
Hello, everyone. Kerry Hamilton, planner for the District of Squamish, and I'll very quickly present a quick overview for DP 000651. 234 rental units with 25 affordable units, and I'll let the architect explain a little bit more on that. There's no variances, and this is also, because of the rental nature, one of the district's priority development applications policies as well. A few I have included in the ADP report, just a few key considerations that staff are looking for ADP comment on. One of them have to do with the ground floor entrances. So this is a key design feature of the SEAandSKY community, where there's kind of these walkable activated entranceways, and it includes some guidelines specific to making sure we have formal front doors on the street frontage as well as the pathway frontages. So I'd like some comment on that on the design. We're also looking for comment on weather protection I think there's the upper store balconies as well as a outdoor common amenity weather protection space. Comments from landscaping just around the wildlife attractant species and native species. We're looking for comment around the courtyard design and the central lawn, obviously trying to find a balance of social gathering for all ages with structured and unstructured play. The guideline also speaks to gardening, and just want to get ADP's opinions on the proposed design. We're also looking at, they have a unique feature here with an area where there's going to be waste removal as well as kind of loading bay, but also used as an activated area, but it does have a main entrance, and just wanting to ensure that the design does not promote private vehicle access to the space. Lastly, we're also looking for a comment specifically on the dog park. I know this has come up in other applications, but just the surface treatment proposed, which is pea gravel, and any kind of recommendations around that design and the maintenance of that design that they've proposed. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. We'll do reverse order with me still last and Luke gone. That puts Michael, you first. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Taizo Yamamoto with Yamamoto Architecture, and thanks for having us today. Okay. Right there. There we go. So what we're really blessed with is the scale and the site, like how spectacular this site is. We very rarely work in an environment that has a backdrop like this. And I think what we're looking at with the design is to respect the scale, the backdrop, and the site. And we'll walk through some of the main changes that we've done based on the rezoning application, which had a slightly different form and led to a kind of bit of a rethink. But ultimately, this image kind of shows our strategy: have the site as porous as possible, really emphasize the views through the site, allow the hill in the background to come into the site, and get the buildings to be very compact, simple forms, but also very residential in character. And then emphasize the individual elements through roof lines in different colors and materials, but very simple, elegant form that starts to relate to the scale of the environment and starts to speak a little bit to what's been done across the street with the townhouse forms. So this is just a location plan that shows where these two buildings are relative to the SEAandSKY south phase, and it kind of being nestled against the natural landscape towards the south and then further the Chief. And you can see the scale of the townhouses to the north is quite a bit more fine grain, but they've also set up a bit of a language that we're trying to pick up on. So you can see in some of the images here, still fairly simple forms, and the roof forms really identifying the residential character, and a more vertical street wall, differentiated by colors, but overall fairly simple massing. When we started to look at the kind of rethink the initial rezoning massing, we went back to the OCP and the principles, in particular, the views that are really important on the site, both views far and near, and also the porosity of the site. So that's really been a driver. And so you can see in this slide on the left is what the rezoning envisioned, which was essentially a plinth, a two-story plinth of townhouses with residential apartments above, versus what we're proposing is six-story buildings that just come down to ground. And I think this speaks a bit to the comment about entries and individual entries. I think the entries with townhouses have a different scale and kind of more of an urban character versus the project being in the landscape and having kind of access to the ground floor, but not emphasized in the same way that a row of townhouses might be. But this image also shows the improvement of views through the site. So you can see on the left, you would be looking over 2 stories through a pinched viewpoint to the end versus what we're proposing, which is now accessible through at grade and also much better views through. And then this is sort of a 3-dimensional kind of perspective of that. And what's, I think, quite nice about the evolution of the rezoning is the ability to now tie the landscaping at the back of the site, the south side through and into the common space of the courtyard. So in terms of open space, the previous rezoning scheme on the left shows in orange what would have been on top of level 2. So that would have been on top of a concrete podium and accessible only to the residents. The rezoning also had a much deeper plate. So assuming a lot of probably studios or deeper kind of units versus what we're proposing is much leaner, which allows for a more kind of livable, better exposure from for windows, for bedrooms, living rooms, and just a more compact form. And then you can see there's no podium level open space, it's all at grade. So not only is there more area available, it's all at grade as opposed to what was in the rezoning. And then a massing comparison in terms of the roof forms, you can see on the left kind of the bigger, boxier, shallower pitched roof forms versus what we're proposing on the right. Much more compact, but still identifying the individual vertical elements that are accentuated by the roof forms and kind of breaking up those bigger masses into smaller elements. So this view shows the northwest corner dog park foreground and how the building kind of sits in the landscape as opposed to being flanked by row houses, townhouses across the perimeter. Is there anything to add on the dog park? Or at this point, we'll get back to you in the landscape design. But I think we were really happy with moving away from the townhouse and just how much greenery is allowed at grade now, and just the kind of function of the ground floor units being able to go right to the sidewalk. So the open space site plan, the arrows kind of emphasize the porosity that's created through this design. The red arrows indicate the main residential entries on the north. The parkade ramp has also been shifted relative to the rezoning to the south, so it takes it off the main street that provides access to this whole neighborhood. So that's, I think, a big improvement from a traffic management point of view. And then the forecourt that Kerry mentioned is shown with that kind of beige dot at the top in the center. So we want to bring all of the loading activity off the street, but also take advantage of the hardscape that's created for outdoor play, street hockey, that kind of thing. So it can actually be used by residents when it's not being used for loading. And it is tucked on the side, so it is differentiated from where the residential lobbies are. And then the red lines represent circulation through the site. So we have a lot of opportunity to traverse the site, both north-south, but also east to west, and access across the site via stairs to Laurelwood. And then this is a view of the northeast corner and how the grade starts to impact the form towards the southwest. And just some gestures with the roof forms coming down and creating oversized scaled canopies to emphasize the residential entries facing north. And kind of a contrast between a punched window expression for the residential level versus more glazed expanses at the lobbies. So along Laurelwood, you can see there's a pretty significant grade change. And so it's quite interesting because your experience of the building will be quite different as you're driving north, and it kind of emerges as you fall down the hill. But we've taken advantage of that to tuck in some bike parking in the southeast corner of the site, which is shown just in white on the top elevation drawing. And that allows us to have accessible bikes at grade also, so people can wheel their bikes across the site directly into the bike facility without having to go into the parkade. A minor redesign of the rezoning pathway. The pathway shown in the rezoning to connect Laurelwood to the site to the west was this switchbacking, the notion of it being accessible, but when you get to Laurelwood, it's a non-accessible street. The slope is steeper than an accessible ramp, and in doing this switchback, we end up having a lot more impact to the trees that are to the southeast corner of the site. So the proposed is a much more direct walkway that allows us to preserve all of those trees, and the parkade is pushed north to also facilitate no impact to those tree roots. We also, when we looked at the project, we wanted to think about the overall context and a strategy of color and material, and a transition from the shore and maybe a more water-informed palette to a more forest-informed palette to the east. So that kind of is how we arrived at the color scheme that we're presenting. And that's shown here with combination of corrugated metals and cementitious panels that are color matched to give a bit of tone on tone and variety and interest through the textures of the cladding, rather than too much contrast. This way we have the individual elements very clearly articulated and the streetscape of the townhouse is broken into identifiable elements. And then just another rendering view from the south looking through the site and just how the building sits with this incredible backdrop. And I'll hand it over.
All right, thanks, Tyzo. Hey, everybody, my name's Thaddeus Holland. I'm a landscape architect with Perry and Associates. And we really pulled our inspiration for the landscape design from the immediate adjacency that we have with the bluff. A lot of the previous phases, it's just a flat site, wide open. But here we're really trying to embrace the forest aspect through the materiality of our palette. And we also wanted to create the perception of the bluff spilling onto the courtyard podium to really blur that line also between what's public and semi-private. And then Tyzo mentioned the porosity through the site. So this was one of the key drivers for laying out the pedestrian connections and walkways, and not only internally, but also providing direct connections to the pedestrian network along Laurelwood and Channel Road. And these are all accessible pathways with the exception of that east-west connection that Tyzo mentioned, where we do need the stairs. The lobby entries that are fronting on Channel Road consist of unit paving, and we filled out those courtyards with site furnishing, benches and visitor bike racks. And then the dog park anchors the open space in the northwest corner of the site. Again, we envision pea gravel there, and again, we'll appreciate your feedback on that. As we work our way towards the courtyard, spilling out of the backside of building H, we have a hardscape which will house the outdoor dining. We got barbecue and some lounge seating. This transitions to a large open lawn area, which is big enough to provide for volleyball or badminton, some of your other more program activities. And then we've also included some large planters, again, wanting to bring some of that bluff materiality and texture into the courtyard space. And so we've had to berm up the soil to provide enough depth for the trees that are planted there. And then this all ends up at the south end where we have informal play with an embankment slide, log steppers, boulders, again, just trying to hint at that materiality. We've also allowed for 2-meter wide bike paths, which connect the northeast corner and southwest corner of the sites directly to the bike storage in the parkade. And then again, that turnaround area, the material is a street bond coating. So instead of just a sea of black asphalt, you can do something whimsical there as well. Can you flip to the next slide? And so these are a little more illustrative sections showing the varying degrees of retaining along Laurelwood that's needed. So for most of it, we're able to slope out at a pretty reasonable degree. But there is section B there, which points out the pinch point of the site where we will need some tiered walls. And then the section on the top of the screen there depicts the elevation change of about 7 meters between Laurelwood and the new road B. So you do need a fair bit of stairs to get down from Laurelwood to access the courtyard. And then the section below just shows the extent of the parkade. And then once we're beyond that, we have more opportunity for deeper soils, which will support the larger trees that have been specified along the perimeter of the site. And the last slide here is just the precedent images. Again, some of the hardscape materiality that we're thinking about, the site furnishings with the heavy timber, and again, really trying to nail home the aesthetic of the bluff landscape. Thank you.
Maybe one comment before, there was a question or comment about weather protection on the top level of the building. And I think the perspectives are not helping because they're right at eye level of where we're proposing a metal plate canopy above those top level balconies. So the intent is to give some breathing room to those gable forms by not having a very thick slab, but they're still intended to be covered, weather protection above those doors. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, now I will correctly point out that Michael, you can start with comments. Sorry, questions. Questions only, please.
Thanks for the presentation. It's quite a thorough package. Did you have a target soil volume per tree that you were using?
Yeah, we're trying to meet 10 cubic meters. I know that's going to be a challenge above the parkade slab. So that's why we're trying to create more of the berms and not only separation between that parking area or not parking area, but turnaround area to really try and drive the volume up for that area. And also those planters are pretty big in scale too, to accommodate that as well.
Okay. There is a flight of stairs to the south of the play berm. And I've been trying to figure out, looking at the grading plan, why that stair is necessary. And I think it's maybe just there's not quite enough detail in the grading plan, but can you explain why there's that staircase behind the play berm, the south of the play berm?
I think you're right, where we can eliminate that with a closer look. Yeah, we reworked that area to provide the 2-meter bikeway pathway to the bike storage. But yeah, I think the grading's close enough where we can eliminate that stair and make it that way that courtyard becomes fully accessible.
And then with the pea gravel for the dog run, were there any other materials you were considering, or what was the reason you chose pea gravel at this point?
Yeah, pea gravel for cost was the main one, the big area, but we were considering turf, artificial turf. Or maybe a combination of the two.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have right now.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions.
And ADP first. All right. Shora? Questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Great. Kim?
No questions here either.
Okay. Sarah?
One question, and this is probably to the district. Is there going to be any designated accessible parking on the street?
That's a great question, Sarah. This Road B is a strata-owned road. Certainly something we can consider in the design at this stage. And then all of Channel Road has already been built. And I'm not positive if there is accessible stalls or not on there.
Yeah, I haven't seen any as of yet, but that would be an alternative to when you can't park underground. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. This probably should be pretty clear to me, but so the strategy for the road network now for the rezone portion, is it to raise it up so that you can kind of continue on with this approach generally for future phases? When I say this approach, I mean like parkades underneath future grade of road.
The road network is already established and the grades are established, especially with the north phase already complete. So we're working with that grade and we are having to excavate under for the parkade.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's okay. Very interesting. And so no water table issues, all that's
Yeah, we have to manage our entry elevation to the parkade and yeah, work through that with our geotech.
Okay, awesome. That's all I have in the way of questions. So, wow, I guess we'll move straight to comments. I'm a little in shock here. Michael, you want to provide some comments, please?
Sure. I do have a number of comments. So I think, yeah, the target soil volume for the trees, 10 cubic meters, as you said, is a good target. When I did look at the plan, it seemed like in most cases you were, with the depths you're proposing and the areas you're proposing those depths, like you're getting pretty close to those. So that seems reasonable for the species you have. It looks like you've minimized the bear attracting species. There does seem to be a concentration of berry producing trees on the east side of the development, but I think that if you space those out enough that it won't be a heavy attractant to bears. There are 2 species that are invasive species identified on the SEAandSKY invasive species council lists. That's the Prunus loricerasis and I don't know if I'm saying this right, but the Juga reptans, the black scallop. So those should be swapped out with alternative species, native preferably. I think that in terms of the plants you're using, there's a good mix of native species in there with also sort of species that can be maintained appropriately for this setting. I do wonder about like the bluff has Western red cedar in it, and there's a lot of space that's for like where we're further than 10 meters away from the building, which would then be acceptable to use Western red cedar. And I think that would be a really good species to use in this site, given its sort of shade tolerance and context with the bluff right behind it. It's also an important native species in the area. So look at potentially using that to kind of bring a more native and Squamish feel to the site. And then the trees on the south of the building, kind of next to the retained trees, are are fairly sun-loving trees, the aspen and the dogwood, but I think that's actually going to be kind of a shady spot. So maybe looking at some different species there. I think so the dog park, I'm going to suggest you look at the City of Vancouver's People, Parks, and Dogs strategy. They have an implementation guide and a guidelines, and they go through a bunch of different materials and amenities to include. I think it's a really good resource. And in this, with such a tight, like it's going to be a very heavily used dog park for a small space. And I do think that the artificial turf might be the better product. It takes a bit more maintenance in terms of like irrigation and flushing it, but I think that it won't have the dust issues. It'll have a better look, and I think the pea gravel can be an accessibility issue to people who have mobility challenges with dogs. So if you do look at a granular material, make sure you're still providing a concrete path to like benches, and I think water provision would be a good thing to have as well for this, for dogs and people. I think that the two tree species you have at the entrance to the dog run are very dense trees that you can't really see through, but I think having visibility to that entrance is important so people can see the dogs that are around. Also make sure that the entrance with the double gate is accessible to someone in a wheelchair to get in. It feels quite tight right now. I didn't see a bike wash station, but I think that would be an important element to have in this design to accommodate somewhere before they get into the indoor bike parking. And then with the central, so addressing kind of the comment about how to not want or to discourage cars in that sort of central staging area, I was wondering about connecting it more with the central lawn. Like you have this mound with the tree kind of between those two spaces, but I actually think that might actually feel like a fairly tight space with the mound, and that by removing that, you're connecting those two spaces, opening it up, opening the views, and maybe instead of like how you've sort of suggested the colored pavement, maybe that color actually flows more out from the central lawn area out towards the sidewalk, so there's more of a flow through. And I think that instead of the mound being converted to grass, if you're moving that, like looking at that heart, like that, continuing that outdoor amenity space, that there's sort of like a central lawn to maybe more of like the amenity seating area that then goes into this more open programmable space for kids to bike around or play hockey or whatever. So I think like consider that kind of approach and how that central space, because I think the more that it feels connected to this pedestrian communal space, the more awkward people will feel having their cars sitting there. And then I guess my other comment is be really give a lot of consideration to how the central lawn is draining, because you don't want it to be very flat. It'll be really soupy. And so how are you going to deal with water like cresting off that, and where does it go? Because you have, at first I was thinking like, oh, it'd be great if these treed areas are actually rain gardens, but they're the opposite. You need to mound them up to plant the trees. So just to be thinking about collecting water and making sure that there's a good positive drainage, that central lawn will be important to the success of that space. And do I have any other comments there? Oh, the entrance, the ground floor unit entrances. That's a tough one. I was wondering about potentially adding like unique gates or number posts to sort of make it more distinguishable entrances from the streets. But I do recognize that the buildings are more set back. Like there's a lot of sort of space around the buildings so that it's kind of a different condition on this lot. But I do think that one way to activate the spaces would be you have a few like nooks of lawn area amongst the plantings, and those could be more informal seating areas or like playful seating, like lounge seating or I think just ways to bring people into those spaces instead of just passive lawn could add a good element. I think I'll leave my comments there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
I don't have a whole lot of comments on this one. Appreciate the presentation and rationale. I'd also say that I'm sure that the entire design panel appreciates the thorough package that we received. And I understand the changes that are proposed here from the previous zoning, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of the 5 items that we were asked to comment on. I don't have much to say about the ground floor entrances. I think it works the way it is. Thinking about the outdoor amenity space in the courtyard and central lawn, I think the buildings create a really, like, that central lawn and courtyard area is really compelling. That's a really cool space. I could imagine it being very well used. It will, with that north-south orientation, the summer presumably will get a fair bit of sunlight across it. So yeah, just say, encourage you to activate it with play structures. Maybe there's some opportunity for covered, outdoor covered spaces of different kinds. I think, we saw during the pandemic, some communities figure out ways to create covered outdoor spaces for people to gather in a safe manner. And so maybe there's some inspiration that could be drawn there. The landscaping question I'll leave to the landscape experts to comment on, and the dog park, I've got no input on that one. So otherwise, those are all my comments.
Thank you. Shora?
Thank you. Really appreciate the design and the package. Thank you. I really like the simplicity of the form and the use of the materials. I think it's just very well suiting to the context. Really appreciate this ground-oriented yard system. I think it works really well. I don't have a problem with those unit access either. I think they work pretty fine. I have two comments. I really think the changes since the rezoning package are positive. Just having that ground-oriented yard, and not having the townhomes and not having the podium, very, very positive changes. The only thing that I keep going back to is I think the original form with the hinge in the middle was more successful in the way of breaking these long facades. I'm not sure what was the discussion at the time of rezoning and why that has changed. So my recommendation would be considering bringing that break in the long direction. And then you've put so much thoughts, well thought of plan for access and these nice lobbies. But I'm not sure if I quite understand if I want like a garbage truck there, with bunch of cars loading and unloading. It just seems a little bit off to me. Whereas everything else is just so fitting and seems to be working really well. And then my last comment is a small comment, but it is about the steps at the bottom of this picture that we're looking at, the site plan. I understand there's a change of grade, but considering a bicycle wheel ramp or something to be able to provide access for bicycles, at least through the stairs, would be nice. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Kim?
Generally, I think it's a great improvement too from the original submission. I like the fact that there's the split between the buildings and that it's quite clean. And the one comment, and I know it's a style thing you're doing, is wrapping those gabled roofs down on the side elevations. I find they're pretty harsh and monotonous the way they're wrapped. I know it's a popular thing to do, but to me, it really emphasizes the verticality of those walls. And if you were to articulate them a little bit more, it's with either change in materials or some kind of thoughts to color materials, something to break it up or form, because I find the big wrap, it works on a 2-story building, but on a 6-story building, it really is making it feel 6 stories. So that's the main comment I have. But generally, I think it's quite a great improvement, and it looks like a very good project. Thanks. And I have to leave, sorry, but that's my comments. Okay.
Okay. Kim, if you do have to leave, does that affect quorum? No? We're good?
You're good?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I just have to get my dog to the vet.
Thanks, Kim. Hope the dog's all right. Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, overall, I think the project looks good. I do understand the distinction of the doors is lacking a bit at the ground level, but overall, I find the tone of the buildings to be quite calm and fitting back against the granite face there. I do have some comments about the accessible parking. There's only 6 accessible parking spaces, given that there's 5 accessible units and another 23 adaptable units. I think this number is insufficient, and there isn't any accessible visitor parking. So that also should be revisited. I do think that the pea gravel will be problematic in the dog area. So probably artificial turf, and even a like well compacted granite crush pathway adjacent would maybe be a bit more porous and could still be an accessible surface to roll on. With the gates, yes, just ensure that there's sufficient space, but also that the latch mechanism is operable with a closed fist, so that you'll have to do a little bit of searching for. I would encourage you to use CSA B652 for the design of the accessible dwellings, because the BC Building Code really is absolute bare minimum, and there's a lot of things that it misses in terms of usability. So all of those accessible units or rental units, they should have roll-in showers. Ensure that the controls for those showers is reachable from a seated position. You need to have accessible appliances, which includes a wall oven, and currently the configuration doesn't have that set up for that. I'd encourage you to add wiring for future installation of automatic doors on those accessible units. And also another consideration is just with the rental adaptable units is just to, maybe consider finishing the floor beneath the cabinets in the bathroom and the kitchen. So if you do need to remove that bottom cabinet, that it's, that you're prepared to do that, and it's not going to then be some additional costs in the future. That's primarily my comments. I think I would encourage the district to add an accessible parking stall somewhere along one of the road frontages, even if it's one of these strata roads, and then just ensure that there's some hard surfacing adjacent to unload onto it with a curb cut. That's all my comments, but a project looks great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, time for me. Thank you very much for the presentation and the very thorough package. I don't think we've ever not had that many questions before. I'd say the outcome of the package is some aspects of the design that I would qualify as experimental or maybe even unorthodox, but in a wonderfully Squamish way. I think this site plan presents an opportunity and a form that I think a lot of us in the development community often would like to provide, but due to various requirements like flood construction levels, et cetera, and parking requirements are unable to. So I think it's taking good advantage of the site as it is and being able to provide that. And it's nice to do when you can do it. Part of the unorthodox approach is this idea around the shared kind of garbage area that's then used by the public. And I think that's wonderful because as we've seen these requirements grow and grow, that's a bunch of wasted space in a place where we can't really waste much space. So I think all of the other comments and the requests from planning with regards to the DP, I agree with the colleagues on that and kind of didn't hear much in the way of conflicting comments. So I'll leave it at that. I'll summarize what I've heard from today. So kind of a number of landscaping comments regarding invasives, encouragement to transition those to native species, and then just general sun versus shade. I also think I'll just add to that commendable to pull that extent back to preserve existing trees. I think that's something we always want to do and are often unable to. So it's good that you can do that in this situation. The recommendation to use City of Vancouver dog park standards. And I think I heard a lot of comments around artificial turf, although Sarah did provide that alternative in, I believe it was crushed granite. But yep, perfect. All right, let me see a nod. Bike wash station, dog wash station, I think as well falls into that category. Just some general considerations around communal space. Some considerations around that entry with gates or numbered posts to enter from the street. But I think generally there's support for how those are being detailed and shown at the moment. Consideration for covered outdoor spaces because you do have such a beautiful large lawn area. It'd be nice to have some rain cover for those mucky days. Some comments around a consideration of a break in the articulation, and also I think just generally like what can be done with that massing at the roof line to make it feel a bit less like a 6-story building, which it is. I think you will have the benefit of the adjacency to the road there and the elevation that should play well into that. And I also imagine whatever is the future home in that sales center will kind of transition that variance in the height, I hope, if I can recall correctly. I like the idea for the bicycle guide ramp for stairs. We see that. I don't think we see that anywhere really in Squamish, but it's very nice to have when it is implemented. Hopefully that's not a code issue that can be navigated around. Increase to accessible parking generally, and also some visitor accessible parking, just a general accessibility review. And I think Sarah's comments are just good to reference as you get into the BP phase. And then adding some spots to the Strata Road, if possible, with the sufficient room on all the different sides, especially for those overhead vehicles. Anything I miss? Seeing none. So again, this is a rental project, priority project. So we have two options. We have that the ADP supports the project as presented and does not need to see the project returned for further review, or B, that ADP supports the project as presented and would like the applicant to work with staff to resolve the following recommendations, which would be somewhere along what we just said. But do I have anyone feel a certain way?
I'll move for B.
For B? Seconded in-house here. Okay, all in favor? I got all the hands up. Great, unanimous again. Wonderful. Thank you all very much. Okay, well, that's all of our agenda items. I did have one request from staff, and I think we maybe talked around this before, but it's great to see new faces at the advisory design panel. It would be awesome if, as we add new members, if we could just get an email about that. And I think similarly, like as members leave, to get an email about that. Just yes.
Yeah, from those.
Yeah. Noted. Okay, perfect.
I think that's a really nice comment, though.
Yeah, I think it's just great. We all are busy, and so I don't think we want to spend too much time. But and everyone, if you want to come down to the old municipality now and then, we can all meet in person. It'd be great. Awesome. Okay, who wants to move for close? John, seconded. All in favor? Have a wonderful day.